Okay. Right. First thing to note about shadows is there are two types. There are cast shadows and form shadows. Okay. So basically, if I give you a circle and I give you a square, I can draw a square, that is. Give you a block, a cube. Okay. There's something called on form shadows. First of all, we'll start with form shadows and then look at cast shadows secondly. There is imagine the light is hitting this ball, okay, from the upper right direction. um, what you get, and I think this is certainly where I used to make my big mistake. I used to think that the further you get, the closer you get to this edge here, the darker the shadow got. And that's not the case. Okay. There's something called referred to as the core of the shadow core. Um, and it lives about here. I'll better pencil this in a bit harder so you can all see. There's my ball shape, circular shape. Okay. Light's coming from here. And the shadow core, the darkest part of the shadow is not at the edge here. It's just before the turn of the curve. It's about here. That's the shadow core. And this is slightly lighter. It grades out. The closer, in fact, the closer it gets to this edge here, the lighter it gets. Okay. I think, hang on. Yeah, the lighter it would get. And this side of the core of the shadow peters out quite subtly, like something like that. Okay. And it's an important form shadow is a really important thing to learn because it gives our objects form, of course, a sense of three dimension. If you just wanted to do a quick painting, just add some paint to that. I'm really doing silly things with my brushes this morning because I'm doing different things. There it is. I lost my brush. Just take a neutral color. It could just be Payne's gray or something. And so if you painted in the shadow core first, okay, about here, and then take some water and land the brush here. Okay, just get the brush moving with some water in it. Just tease into the edge of that shadow core, and you'll probably get the water and the paint to do it for you, do the rest of it for you. And the same the other side over here. Pick up some water, land it in. Don't whatever you do, don't immediately make contact with the shadow core paint. Just tease up to it like this and allow that little bit of water to invite that pigment into the area, and that might be a bit harsh. You can gradate it out as you wish. Then it was a bit of a harsh there. That probably looks a bit more three-dimensional. So that's form shadow. Okay, and on a block like this, because of the hard angles, its geometrical shape, you're going to. I'll talk about color shadow in a moment. Just bear with me at the moment, just using tonal value. This would be the shadowed side of the block, okay? So like this. And then to indicate that there is another face to this, you probably just run a shadow underneath the base, like that, which would be incidentally cast shadow, not form shadow. A little bit over the top. You could even just give this a slightly, if you gave this a little warmish color here, that might look, that might be easier to understand from the on-screen view that you've got on your computers. So I hope that sort of registers. So that's cast shadow. It means it's the shadow that lives on the object itself. That's form shadow. It's the shadow that lives on the actual form. Now then, we can add cast shadow to this. Incidentally, the reason why that occurs, the reason why there's light here, is because most flat surfaces, as we'd expect to find underneath these shapes, okay, will reflect light. And it'll reflect light from all directions. So what's happening is that light area there is simply reflected light off the surface that the ball is sitting on. You could argue there's the same over here, you could lift out some of that form shadow and say there's light on this because it's bouncing up off the surface of this that the cube is sat on. But here's cast shadow. Cast shadow is a lot easier to do. It's I'll just take blue and red, and I'll just say how far. If there's some things to learn here. Light travels in a sort of straight direction. Well, I shouldn't say that because light can bend. But let's assume for us artists that light is traveling in a very straight direction. This point here, just at the top of that cube, is where we would expect the shadow to finish at on the horizontal plane there. Okay, so your shadow can really only come to that point there. I've got to add the caveat here. When I'm painting buildings and shadows, a lot of this goes out the window. I tend to, if I want to shorten my shadow, elongate my shadow, I will, because making those decisions is decisions made to improve your painting, to make the look. That's what I think we mean by, artistic license. But strictly speaking, these are the rules. That shadow will come that far off where this is blocking out the light, therefore the light is the shadow runs to that point there, and the light returns at this point here. And the same for the ball. You'd get some additional strength to that. Wherever the light is here, at that point there, as it comes over the top of the ball, is probably where that shadow should stop, somewhere about here. So learning shadows is an essential thing, and a lot of people avoid it and try to work around it. You can't, I'm afraid. Shadow is light. We only get light in our paintings by painting shadow. Right, where do I take us from here? Shadow color. That really is an interesting one. And I can only explain to you how I employ color and why I employ the colors I use in my shadows. Let's turn this over a moment. So I was just checking to see if I was still recording here. If we've got a tall building, there is a rule, okay? There is a rule of thumb, I should say, that says if you've got cool light, warm darks, okay, or warm shadows, because you've got to have warmth and cool. It's the yin yang thing. So you would just get a big brush, and then I just stick to the one I was using earlier. So if you've got this cool sky up here, I'm just picking up a mix of bluey green. It's cold. It's all, my concern is that it's just cool. It's just a cool color. I do think it's worth knowing where they should be, where the rules should be adhered to before you start breaking them, because having an understanding of what makes a shadow, the color, the shape, whatever its position, is everything before you can play with before you can play around with those rules. You've got to learn them first. But I could have made. I'm going to go for a much warmer shadow. I could have made everything opposite to this. The sky could have been the warm color. And you could even sort of just say, well, I'm not going to be dictated to by the rules. I know my shadow color, because the light color is cool. I know my shadow color should be warm, which is basically what I just did, in all honesty. So, why don't we go really, really warm with the shadow? Looks great, actually. I mean, it's almost, you know, without exception, when I go opposite to what the rules say, I sort of prefer, I prefer what I get. Okay.